Would you believe? There comes a time when the world ends, sucked inside a speck of dust, and it stays like that for untellable time, until a ripple of impossibility dreams of tickling the shore of the real, and a trillion suns explode. Was it first, or was it last? How many times had it been like this? Who to tell? Dark was there, and the wind. Always the wind. If you'd been there, you'd have been warm enough, but kind of slimy and alone. Totally alone. But don't be scared. It was so long ago, you couldn't possibly have been there. Could you? Beings came from somewhere, not from another planet or another galaxy, from another dimension, from inside. They shone like the stars and the moon, but they weren't the stars, and they weren't the moon. They were beings. Shining, they moved through the sky eating joy. What does joy taste like anyway? There wasn't much there to speak of. No sun, no moon, no day, no night. No high, no low, no today, no tomorrow. There were no women and no men. Beings were just beings. Time moved very, very slowly, and the beings moved very, very slowly. And for a long, long time, nothing much happened. But the beings weren't bored. They were happy. They liked it like that. Weird, huh? Then a layer of food formed itself on the skin of the waters. Juicy earth, it was called. Have you ever seen the skin that forms on hot milk when it cools? Juicy earth was just like that. It looked like butter and tasted very sweet, like pure wild honey. Yum! One of the beings saw the juicy earth.
What's this then?
It said. It scooped up a bit of juicy earth on its finger.
Looks alright.
It said.
Smells pretty good too.
The being gave it a lick. Do you know what it said? It said,
Yum!
That's why when mum gives the kids something tasty, they say, Yum! When the beings heard that being say,
Yum!
They wanted some too. So they all had a go at the juicy earth. They slopped it up in big bits and gobbled it down. They got all sticky and sloppy and scuzzy on their faces. It tasted so good they just wanted to keep eating and eating until they got sick. You know what it's like, don't you? I sure do. They ate so much they got fat and heavy. The light shining from their bodies got dimmer and dimmer. They couldn't see at all. So the stars came out, and the sun and the moon. They turned in the sky around and around and around. They made the days and nights, the months, the years, and the seasons. So the world was starting to evolve again. Then some of the beings ate more, and some ate less. The ones who ate more got fat. So the others made fun of them.
Fatso.
So that's why whenever someone's fat or ugly or just different, people laugh at them. And you know what happened to those nasty beings? The juicy earth dried up and vanished. So they all went hungry and had to go on a diet. And they cried and whinged about losing the juicy earth.
Oh, gotta get that taste, gotta get that taste.
So that's why when advertisements try to make you buy some food, they say,
Oh, gotta get that taste.
And when the juicy earth had gone, there came a kind of mushroom. It was nearly as sweet and delicious as the juicy earth, but not quite. And the beings ate that even more. Pretty greedy. And they became more and more different from each other. Some were tall, some short. Some were dark, some light. Some were pretty, some ugly. They separated into groups and called each other names.
Zithead, camel face, bum burp.
How would you like to be called camel face? I suppose it'd be alright if you were camel. Then the mushrooms disappeared and some creepers appeared. They were pretty tasty too, but not as good as the mushrooms, so they ate them. All of them. When the creepers were all gone, they sat around and said,
Remember the good old days?
So that's why when people think about all the bad things in the world, they say,
remember the good old days?
But it doesn't help much, does it? Then rice grew in the open places. It was tasty and clean, and it didn't have any husk, and it didn't have to be cooked. You just went out in the morning and there it was. You could take what you wanted for brekkie, and by dinner time, there it was, ready to eat again. The beings became even greedier. After living for a long, long time, they started to get old. They became grey and slow, and some of them died. Their bodies changed. Some became women and some became men. Before, they had been whole, but now they felt like they'd been torn in half. And the women spent all day thinking about the men. And the men spent all day thinking about the women. So they got together and had sex, and then they felt whole again. But only for a little while. And then the other being said,
Well, if you're going to get up to that kind of business, you better go and do it in private.
So the beings found partners and separated from each other in couples. And they built houses so they could hide things from each other. Then someone thought,
Why do I bother to go out twice a day to get food? Why don't I just go out in the morning and collect food for the evening as well?
Then in the evening his friend said, Come on, let's go get some food. And he replied,
No need. I collected enough for 2 meals this morning.
And his friend said, Boy, that's a clever idea. Why didn't I think of that? So he collected enough food for 2 days. But when they started storing it up, the rice grew a tough husk, and it didn't grow back. And so they had to plow the soil and thresh the grain. What a hassle! So then they had to divide the land up for farming. They made boundaries and put up fences. Some people got good land and some people got bad land. And they argued with each other.
It's mine.
No, I was here first. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine.
It's mine.
So they started fighting and hitting each other. Then the people all came together and said, Oh, how sad we are. Before we were all joyful together, radiant and happy, and now it's come to this, fighting and jealousy and arguing and selfishness. Let us choose a leader, one who is wise and just and fair and good. Then when we have problems, they can help us. So they chose the best and wisest lady of them all. And because she wasn't crooked but straightforward and honest, they called her ruler. That's why if you want to draw a straight line, you use a ruler. And then the ruler did her duties, which were these: to protect all the men and women in her realm, to deal with everyone fairly and kindly, to care for the animals and the birds and the fish, to help anyone who had no house or no food, to heal the sick in body and comfort the sick in mind, to listen with compassion when people came with conflicts and disputes, and to always encourage people to do good and to love each other. So all the people were happy and loved their ruler. Wouldn't you? Then the ruler got old and died. They were very sad. They chose a new ruler, but she wasn't as good as the first one. And because they missed their ruler so much, they made a statue of her. A very big statue in a temple. Then they went and prayed to the statue and made offerings to it. And even though the ruler had hated killings, still they took poor innocent creatures and killed them in sacrifice. They made her into a goddess. Before, they themselves were real gods, but now they are worshipping a fake god. Unbelievable. Heaven was in an uproar,
It's outrageous.
cried the king of gods.
Those fools, how can they think I like their revolting sacrifices? What do they think I am? All their pompous rituals and ceremonies? Always trying to butter me up and beg for some kind of favor. Pathetic. And anyway, what do they imagine I can do for them? How can I save them from themselves? When
He sighed.
When will they ever grow up and understand that they're responsible for their own actions?
The rulers got very rich and powerful. They got people to worship them as gods even before they died. And they forgot all about their duties. They took so much money, the people became poor. So because there was greed, there was poverty. Because there was poverty, there was hunger. Because there was hunger, there was stealing. Because there was stealing, there was killing. And people's lives were becoming shorter and shorter and meaner and meaner. And then some of these people said,
Enough! Why should we live among such evil?
So some men went to live in the forest. They meditated in little huts made of leaves and sticks. They walked through the village with their alms bowls and people gave them food. They tried to do good and to help others to do good too. They lived in the jungle with all the wild animals, but they never hurt any of them. People would see them sitting silent and still in the silver shine of the stars, and because their bald heads shone like the moon, the people called them monks. Some of the women went to live in the forest and meditate too. They said to the people, "Why search for happiness when there is none?" So people called them nuns. But then, some of the monks couldn't meditate, so they came out of the forest and wrote books telling others how to meditate. Meditation is right, they said. But reading is writer. So people called them writers. Life got more and more complicated. The world became more and more full of bad things. The trees were chopped down. No one had time to smell the flowers or watch a sunset. People didn't trust and love each other. They smiled with their mouths, not their eyes. They wanted lots and lots of money. They were never satisfied with simple things. They took drugs. They didn't respect their parents and elders. The worse they were, the more they thought they were clever. The monks and nuns told them not to be bad, but they didn't like that. They wanted to be bad. They thought bad was good. In the end, the people's lives would become so short, they would only live for 10 years. 10 years! Imagine that. The girls would have babies at 5 years old. They would never help each other or be kind at all. When they saw someone spit on their own mother or father, they'd say,
Cool, man.
And they'd live like animals, having sex with anyone at all, even their own parents or children. And they'd laugh at their own cruelty. They'd even forget how to say the word good. And there would be a dreadful war. They'd take guns and bombs and knives and attack each other, yelling,
You beast, you freak, you shit, die!
They'd fight and they'd kill with minds full of hate. There'd be no good guys and no heroes. For 7 days they would kill. And the towns and cities would all be destroyed. That's how bad it can get. But there would be some people who would run away from the killing. They'd think, I don't want to kill or be killed. And so they'd run screaming into the hills to hide. And after the killing's over, they'd come out. They'd see each other and be so happy. How wonderful, my friend, to see you still alive. And they'd hug each other and they'd laugh and cry. Then they'd say, how horrible war is. It's no good for anyone ever. It's because we were so bad that we ended up destroying everything. I know. Let's do something good. Let's all agree not to kill or harm each other. So that's what they'd do. And because they did not kill, their lives would become longer and happier. So they said, see how much happier we are living in peace and friendship together? What else can we do that's good? Let's stop stealing, lying, backbiting, taking drugs, greed, hatred. That's all stupid stuff. We've been doing that for a long time now, and look where it's got us. Let's be generous, helpful, mindful, loving, restrained and content. Let's care for nature and build a better world. Let's meditate so that we can make our minds pure and radiant and joyful, and their lives would become even longer and happier still. And so it would go for a long, long time of joy and peace. And after a long, long time, there would be born a young man called Maitreya. He would be very handsome and very intelligent, and everybody would love him dearly. He would see how good and kind and happy the people were. But he would also see how they got old and died. And sometimes they'd be sad and not know why. They couldn't do anything about it.
I wonder,
He would say,
is there anything beyond birth and death? Is there any true happiness and peace?
So he would shave off his hair and go into the forest to meditate. He became a Buddha. Do you know what that is? I hope so. Now then, how do you feel? Spun out? Good. We've come a long way together in these few pages. You've been like a god, surveying all of creation from on high. If you were really a god, what kind of world would you make? Let me tell you a secret. You are God. And right now, you are making this kind of world. So, what are you going to do about it?